Hello everyone, it's Alana and welcome back to my channel for chapter 12 of Sweetbriars Leaving the City. Before we get too far into this video, don't forget to give it a big thumbs up, subscribe to my YouTube channel and hit that notification bell so you know when chapter 13 is going to be uploaded. And if you have any questions, comments or reviews, feel free to message me on my social medias at Alana Clark Equestrian on Instagram and Facebook, or at ace_equestrian on Twitter, and I'll be answering you all, or you can put it in the comments below. That's Halen saying hi. And without further ado, let's start reading.
Sweetbriars, Leaving the City, Chapter 12. Cate was a tad weary from studying for her maths exam and practising for the championships, when one evening at supper her mum surprised her with the most wonderful news. She was going to the Olympia Horse Show in London. Mum and Dad had bought Cate and Alex tickets to the show jumping and the freestyle dressage. Mum had planned everything and had even bought a ticket for Beth to go with them to the dressage. They would stay with their Aunt Sal and Uncle Pete while they were in London. Ariel from Kate's school visited Sweetbriars with her parents. Her horse Mia was going to start livery there in the new year. Violet had started weekly show jumping lessons with Mum and had been doing grid training. This was helping Spot adjust his strides and be more reactive to the fences. Spot refused to jump one day and Violet went over the handlebars, jumping the jump for him. When Mum ran to help her, Violet began laughing and saying, "Finally, finally," as she lay on the ground. Then she stood up and brushed the dirt off her legs. "I had to fall sometime, and now I'm a real rider. The only damage is a stain on my new jumpers." This incident made Cate think Violet was a bit mad, but it also made her love her even more. The night before the maths exam, Cate was sitting on her bed and studying a practice paper. She felt tension behind her eyes, and the numbers were swirling around the page. Pip was sitting beside her and providing a bit of amusement by batting the pen with his paw whenever she tried to write. Cate sighed and put the maths papers away. She tucked herself under the covers, patted Pip as he snuggled into her side, and turned off the lamp. The next morning Cate woke early with a sense of purpose to get the maths exam done and dusted. She got to the classroom with 10 minutes to spare and was one of the first students to arrive. By 9 o'clock, when the exam was due to start, the room was almost full of students staring at the whiteboard solemnly. Violet was the last to arrive, looking relaxed and carefree as she took her seat and peeled off her winter layers. Miss Dixon distributed the question sheet and answer paper. She explained they would have 1 hour to complete the test and wished them good luck. Violet mouthed good luck to Cate and then to Tabby, who sat behind them. They both smiled in response and focused on the task at hand. Cate scanned the answer sheet and couldn't believe her luck. She knew how to tackle all the questions. Usually she found there were at least a couple that were tricky and made a mess of them. She took a deep breath and wrote her name neatly at the top of the sheet. She felt clear-headed. She finished the test with 10 minutes to spare and found her hand was aching after writing non-stop. She opened and closed it a few times to release the tension and read through her answers. She'd realised she'd made a mistake in one of her easier questions and furiously rubbed out her original answer, then rewrote the correct answer, pressing hard on the page. The lead broke and Cate madly sharpened her pencil, then finished the question just as the bell rang, signalling the end of class. Violet looked at Cate and mouthed, "Okay?" and Cate mouthed back, "Yes," nodding her head and smiling with a sense of achievement. The classroom was hushed and quiet as people packed up their things. Then as they all left the classroom, they exploded in loud chatter. The exam was behind them and the holidays were only hours away. Later at the Cream Cakes Cafe, Cate, Violet and Tabby celebrated their last day of school with hot chocolates and scones. George added cinnamon to their hot chocolates and gave them handmade marshmallows courtesy of Mrs. Magle. They chatted about Olympia and all the lovely horse and rider combinations Cate was sure to see. Violet and Tabby begged Cate to take lots of photos. Tabby was going to visit her dad, who lived in Cornwall over the festive break, and she didn't seem to want to talk about it much. Violet was excited to be celebrating Christmas for the first time at their farmlet, and had been having a fun time putting up Christmas decorations. On the day they were to leave for London, Cate took Odette for a hack around Sweetbriars first thing in the morning, despite the bleak weather. Riding Odette down the road, Cate thought about the things that had happened since Odette had reared and frightened her. In Kate's last lesson with her mum, she had spoken about the importance of staying relaxed and reminding her that riding was meant to be fun. Cate realised how tense she'd been. She found when she relaxed and thought positively about dressage, Odette didn't get anxious, which made it easier for Cate to perform the movements required on time. Cate had also been practising the test less and found that Odette wasn't anticipating what was next. Cate braced herself against the cold. It had been raining cats and dogs the past few days, and now it was freezing. There were ice patches and numerous puddles on the road, and she had to be careful not to let Odette step in them. The saddle squeaked annoyingly in the cold, and Kate was distracted by her own reflection in the puddles. Odette felt on edge, spooking at things Kate couldn't see. When they left the road, a rabbit darted across the path, and Odette spun and leapt into the air, unseating Kate. She took a deep breath, realizing how close she'd been to a fall. She shortened her rein, sat deeper in the saddle, and urged Odette forward with her legs. The last thing she needed was to fall off and miss going to London. Odette's walk felt choppy and full of tension as they got closer to home. It wasn't unusual for the horses to become spooky when it was winter, as they spent more time in their stables because the fields were often muddy or covered in ice. Back at the stables, Kate's eyes were watering from the wind, and her hands and feet felt numb. Kate was glad to finish riding, and after putting Odette in her warm stable, she went inside the house to have a hot shower and get ready for the trip. While she was packing, she heard a knock at her bedroom door. Mum poked her head in the door and said, "Darling, I have something for you." She entered the room and sat on the bed, and then pulled an envelope out of her pocket. Kate's curiosity was piqued. "What is it?" "Open it and you'll see," her mum said in a girly, suspenseful voice. Kate opened the envelope. There were £300 in there. "Oh gosh, Mum, thank you!" "It's an early Christmas present from your father and me. We thought you could buy some nice things in London and at Olympia." Kate was thrilled. She had some savings she'd planned to use for expenses in London. Both Kate and Alex received a small allowance for performing their chores, but this was wonderful. "I'll be ready at 1 o'clock with the car, all right?" "Okay, Mum, thank you again," replied Kate as she hugged her mum excitedly. Before they left, Kate visited Odette to give her a carrot and a cuddle. Odette looked at ease after their daredevil ride, and Kate laughed as she rubbed the mare's nose. Then she heard Alex calling her and ran to the idling car. They arrived at the train station with 20 minutes to spare, giving them time to buy hot drinks and a snack for the journey. "Please take lots of photos and don't buy too many things at Olympia. Remember, there are non-horsey shops that sell nice things too," chided Mum. On the journey, they travelled through spectacular countrysides in various shades of greens and browns, dotted with horses, cows and sheep. It was a frosty winter scene, and Kate snuggled into her warm mac, sipping her hot chocolate, watching the world go by. As they approached London, they saw the usual urban scenes full of metal and cement. As they entered the city, the buildings became denser with billboards, offices, and neat rows of identical terraced houses. The only signs of nature were bare, forlorn-looking trees with ghost-like trunks nestled into the pavements beside the busy roads. When they walked through the ticket gates and out of the station, Alex and Kate found Aunt Sal and Uncle Pete sitting at a table in a Costa cafe, sipping from giant cups. They looked radiant and sporty, with glowing skin and lots of hair. Uncle Pete's was an even shade of grey, slightly curly and tucked trendily behind his ears. Aunt Sal was a natural brunette with hair hanging to her waist. They were wearing similar outfits, brightly coloured North Face outdoor clothing, and looked ready for anything. "Aunt Sal," called Kate. "My little darlings, there you are," replied her auntie, leaping from the table and embracing them both. Uncle Peter stood up and hugged them warmly, commenting on how much they'd changed. They hadn't seen each other in almost a year, as Aunt Sal and Uncle Pete had been travelling in South America. Sal and Pete didn't have children. Sal was a pottery teacher and also created sculptures. Pete was a retired geologist who spent many months away surfing or skiing in what seemed to Kate like hugely exotic destinations. They left the train station in Pete's bright orange combi van. It seemed to be in hypercolour compared to the London greyness around it. As Pete drove, Kate felt suffocated by the low grey sky and the never-ending grey buildings, tarmac roads and traffic lights, although things improved when they arrived in Hampstead. The high street, with its familiar boutique shops and restaurants, was pretty and twee. Colourful Christmas lights illuminated snowmen, reindeers, and, of course, Santa. There were flashing stars hanging from the traffic lights, and in the shop windows there were Christmas trees and tinsel. Minutes later they pulled into the driveway of the cottage. It was bright white, with a terracotta tiled roof and an inviting yellow door. On the door was a large Christmas wreath with painted pine cones, which Sal and Pete had collected from Hampstead Heath. The cottage was surrounded by a wild garden with colourful winter flowers, and Aunt Sal proudly pointed the names out. When you visited the cottage, you felt like you were in the countryside, while really you were no more than 10 kilometres away from the centre of London. In the evening they went to one of London's oldest pubs, the Holly Bush, for supper. Walking through the door felt like stepping back in time. The ramshackle building had been converted from old stables and was often full of regulars wearing tweed jackets, felt caps and glasses. Dogs large and small lounged under their owners' feet or by the fire. Cate sat in a wooden booth and had a lovely time catching up with her aunt and uncle and hearing their stories about hiking and surfing in the Patagonia. Uncle Pete showed them videos of glaciers taken while trekking through Patagonian Andes. They updated their aunt and uncle about their time at Sweetbriars, and it was clear to Pete and Sal how much the children's lives had changed. The next morning when Cate woke, she looked out the window that faced the garden and the edge of Hampstead Heath, curious about the strange noises she'd heard through the night. The frosty wooded winter scene outside seemed still and serene. During breakfast with her aunt and uncle, who were health fanatics, Cate asked them about the noises. They said it was owls hunting for food on the heath. Cate yawned and rubbed her eyes, grateful not to have owls living close to Sweetbriars. After a delicious breakfast of toasted muesli and homemade fruit compote, they went for a walk on Hampstead Heath. It was almost 800 acres of unspoilt rolling hills, wooded areas and natural swimming ponds with views over London. The four of them ducked into a wooded pathway with a carpet of brown and golden leaves covering the ground. They headed uphill and finally arrived at Kenwood House, where they gazed at the beautiful vista of London and had fun pointing out familiar landmarks. They ate hot pies in the Kenwood House cafe and then walked back to Hampstead to get a crepe at the famous La Crêperie cafe. Cate ordered her favourite, a simple crepe with lemon and sugar. It was delicious and worth the wait they'd had in the queue. They arrived back at the house around 4 o'clock and were finally about to depart for the Olympia Horse Show.
And that is all from me today. I really hope you've enjoyed reading chapter 12 with me. I know I really did. If you have any questions, comments or reviews, feel free to put them below or message me on my social medias, which I'll be linking below. And so from the horses and I, it's goodbye!